me to hang up.
Yes, you must hang up. Conversations with
dude
Siso.
But yeah.
Hey, warasa. Like, my sister is loud and I told her I have a meeting now.
Okay, yeah.
Cut it. Cut.
Okay. Okay, I'll just type.
I'll introduce myself once she's done.
Okay. Sharp.
Are you done? Are you done?
Done.
Hi guys, it's your girl Ytryn Mokone, and today I've decided to go live and I'll be joined by a wonderful special friend called my dad, my brother. He's an uncle, he's everything. So he just published this book that is called Conversation with My Peers, and then we'll be asking him some questions. We'll get to know him, and then if ever you guys have any questions relating to this book or writing in general and publishing, just let us know. So I'm gonna let him join right now. Stay tuned. Somebody tell Mando to stop. Hey, she doesn't listen. No, see. Hey, your friend. Hi, Daddy.
Hi, Mama.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. I don't know if it's your network or my network.
I got disturbed by a call.
Oh.
But I'm back now. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to it. Are you ready?
Yes. I was born ready. I don't know if you are.
Okay, I'm nervous, but okay, let's do this. It has to be fun. No,
I'm the one who's supposed to be nervous.
All right. So first of all, I would like you to introduce yourself. Give us a brief background about yourself, where you come from, all of that.
Okay.
Yes.
You can hear me properly, I guess.
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. Cool. So yeah, my name is Pusiso Les Khatebe. Not gonna go into the last part just yet.
That's enough.
I am a big brother. I am a dad. Literal and figurative. I am 33 years old this year. Am I 33?
Okay.
Yeah, I think I am 33. Yeah.
You think?
Just turned 30. I don't know. I lose count. Sometimes I know I'm 33. Sometimes I think I'm 32.
Me too. Sometimes I think I'm 21. Sometimes I think I'm 20. I'm not sure anymore, but
yeah.
I understand.
So yeah, but the last time I checked, I was 33. So I think that's the correct age.
Okay.
Born, bred in Balfour. Lived a bit on the Free State, but most of my life has been in Balfour. UCT graduate.
Yes.
And what else?
UCT graduates.
Yeah,
that sounds perfect.
Yeah, I think that's about it in terms of my short bio. And and I'm a founder and managing director of Les Publishing Consultancy, formerly known as Les Creations, but it's now officially known as Les Publishing Consultancy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in the process of registering another business, but we'll get into that a bit.
Nice. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. I mean, people know me, so there's no need for me to introduce myself. This is about you, not about me. So guys, if ever you have any questions relating to writing or publishing books, this is the perfect person to ask. So please drop your comments there and ask him anything that you want. Okay, so I've drafted down 10 questions that I'm going to ask you. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing hectic. So, firstly,
That's also.
firstly, I want to know what is it that inspired you to start writing this book, and when did you first realize that, you know what, this is actually something that I want to do?
I think I've always wanted to write, well, in my adult life, that is.
Okay.
But I've always been a reader. I think being a reader is what inspired me to write.
Mm-hmm.
I have a saying. I'm not sure if I'm plagiarizing anyone, but I think this is my saying that you can't be a writer without being a reader.
That's true.
You just absolutely cannot. You can be a reader who doesn't write, but in order to write, you have to be a reader.
Oh, yeah.
That you can't be a reader. I mean, a writer who doesn't read. That's just a recipe
That's
for
great.
disaster. So,
So,
but I
okay.
think my main inspiration
Mm-hmm.
would be having been exposed to African literature such as your Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's,
Mm-hmm.
your Chinua Achebe's of this world. Those were the main guys that inspired me to
Nah.
write. So yeah, that's and I wanted to write from an African perspective, hence
Mhm.
like the need to write. That's where it started, basically, being exposed to African literature. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I've picked up in the book as I was reading. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah.
So as you're saying that you grew up being a reader,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So did your parents read you bedtime stories, Pela? No, we didn't grow up like that. We didn't grow up like that. So you see, like I never fell in love with reading because that's not how I grew up. I only like
Yeah.
started reading now. Yeah, but
Hmm.
so tell us about yourself. Nina and Palai,
Uh,
did they read you
yeah.
books?
No, not really.
Mhm.
My first experience that I can remember picking up a book was when I was about 7 years old, at the local library. That's where my passion for reading started. So I had this best friend in grade one. Yeah,
Yeah,
in sub A then. I'm that old.
yeah.
So in grade one, I had this best friend. We would basically, after school, immediately just go to the library.
In grade
Um, yeah, in grade one. So we would just go to the library. Unfortunately, that library does not exist. It's the one in Eli Lokshin that's burnt down.
Oh.
But yeah, that's where my reading experience started. I started with, reading about astronauts at like the age of 7 or so, and other interesting stories, taking out books from the library and all that. So I didn't have the typical experience of being read bedtime stories. That's not my growing up experience.
Mm.
But basically, my exposure to reading started at grade one, with my friend. And then, yeah, the love of reading then grew from there. But in terms of my collection now, like
Mm.
intentionally collecting books to read, I started collecting secondhand books from the
Yeah.
bookshop that's now closed. It was in town. I would like buy secondhand books for like 3 rands, 5 rands back then,
Mm.
around I think 2009, 2007, somewhere there. That's when I started collecting my book collection from secondhand
Wow.
books. And then when I started reading, when I started working, that's when I could afford now, like
Buying new books.
buying new books. But my collection is mostly composed of secondhand books that I bought for like 3 rands, 5 rands back in
Mm.
the day. Yeah.
Wow. I just want to confess something, ne? Like, yo,
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe you started going to the library when you were in grade one. Now I only started going to the library when I was in varsity. And
Hectic.
and probably making noise. And the only time I went to the library was so that I can like rest and be ready for my next class, not necessarily reading books or anything. You went to the library grade one, Aisha. I'm gonna bring my child. You're gonna babysit my kids from a very young age. Honestly. Eh,
Oh,
I
wow.
am
Yeah.
very inspired, Shem. Who goes to the library in grade 1? Uh-uh.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, that's how we grew up back in the day. Well, me and my friends, that is. Who's that?
I don't know, something is happening outside and they're making noise. I don't know if people I don't know if people are fighting on Jani. And I told them, please don't disturb me. Okay. Hopefully the
Yeah,
sound is like not too much.
no,
And
it's
then
not. Yeah.
how many books have you read so far?
Sure, I lost count, eh? I
Yo.
honestly lost count. Okay, let's say this year.
Yeah,
This
rough
year,
estimation.
then, yeah, this year the number of books I've read, I think they're more than 10.
More than 10. Okay.
I've been very lazy. Yeah, I've been very lazy,
Okay, give
but that's
me
not my annual
2 years.
average.
How many
In
books
two
have you read in
years,
the last 2 years?
I think close to 60 or 70, something like that. Yeah.
70 books.
Yeah.
See, they're calling me.
Okay.
I don't know why they're calling me. Hey. Is they disturbing me? I told them not to disturb me. You've read 60 books so far in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I've read okay, I've read this book. I've read this book, guys. Okay, this is my second book,
Yeah.
and then we can add the
Okay.
Bible as well, right? I read
Yeah.
3 books
Definitely.
now. I've read three
Yeah,
books.
that's
I
not
read
bad.
this one. This is his book, guys. So if ever you'd like to purchase it, please do the most. It's peers
Please. Yeah.
friendly. It's like, yeah, it's peers friendly.
Yeah.
And mine is signed, of course, because we are the
Yeah.
VIP.
Yeah, of course. We can
So yeah,
always
I've
arrange
read
that.
3 books, including the Bible. That counts. Plus the
This
textbooks
year.
that I got from school.
Okay. That
Yeah,
counts as well.
they
All
books.
right. Of
Okay,
course.
so are you friends with authors? Are you
Of
friends with
course.
authors?
I am a few.
Okay.
But I think the closest ones would be about what, three that are
Okay.
like close
Mm-hmm.
friends.
Mm-hmm.
My mentor Wongani, he's
Mm-hmm.
my music mentor, but he's also an author. Is one of the closest people to me that first published a book. This was about 2 years ago. I
Mm.
think 2018, if not 2017. That's when he published his book. It's called Why Me a Man.
Mm.
So it's basically addressing issues around manhood and from a biblical perspective and from a Christian perspective
Oh
mostly.
wow, I definitely love
Um,
that.
yeah, so he's the first person in my circle that I can say has published a book. The other person, we're not really friends, but it's someone that I know.
Mm.
After come shopping,
Oh.
we've met several times in Cape Town. He would come and minister at campus ministry. So he's a pastor he's based in Port Elizabeth. So he's written 3 books. The first one is Christianity and the Veneration of Ancestors. So it
Mm.
talks about what Christians should do in when it comes to the question of ancestral worship.
Yeah.
Do
Interesting.
Christians worship ancestors? Do we acknowledge them? All of that. It addresses those questions.
That's
The other
nice.
one is called Freed by God, Imprisoned by Culture. So it talks about basically from an African perspective in terms of how we get imprisoned by our cultures, but
Mm-hmm.
how God frees us from all of those. But he also tackles issues such as patriarchy and where it comes from and what the Bible has to say about that. And he addresses also the myth that the Bible supports or from his patriarchy. He kind of tracks it from a cultural perspective, you know, in terms of how the Hebrew culture is not necessarily the culture of the Bible, but a culture of a certain people. You know, how we often confuse the two. To say just because something is spoken about in the Bible doesn't necessarily mean that God endorses it. So those, you know, those type of clarifications that just because, you know, for instance, Abraham wanted to kill his son doesn't mean that God endorses it. You know, so sometimes we read about things in the Bible and we think, oh, because the Bible says that, it means that God agrees. You know, so it kind of goes deeper into the cultural aspects mostly of some of the biblical things that we read about, and we assume that, you know, that's how God or that's how things should be just because it's in the Bible. So yeah, so it's called Freed by God, Imprisoned by Culture. I'm not sure about the third title. I haven't really read the book. He released it last year. So yeah, he's also one of the most prominent self-published authors in the Christian space. Who's the third one? I'm forgetting the third one. I'll remember as we go along. But
that's okay. That's fine. So okay, so back to you. Can you please explain to us about Conversations with My Peers? Like, what is this book about? Like, what can people get from this book and all of that? And I'll also share my experience regarding reading this book.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love that. But yeah, for now, let's explain it from my perspective and why. So the book Conversations with My Peers started around 2016. That's when I laid down the concept for the book. And my thing,
that's the third
what
book.
is Sia saying?
A
Passion for
Position.
Oh, okay, yes, that's
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sia. So what was I saying? Oh, the reason behind writing the book.
Yeah.
I had been kind of observing, you know, which is why the subtitle of the book is an observation and critique of society as you know it. I was kind of observing the kind of things that we do and that we consider normal in our society. Things like you are expected to be married at a certain age. You are, you know, expected to just, you know, respect your parents and not question anything. You are, you know, you are supposed to date when you get to a certain age. You know, things like, you know, having a crush on someone, all of those things. And I realized that we hardly discuss these things. You know, we hardly have conversations around even challenging some of these things that we've come to accept as normal in society. So I thought, no, let me just document some of these observations that I'm seeing and write from my perspective, but also write a book that will cause people to talk about some of these topics that I, you know, constantly thinking about. And it also came about as a result of some of the conversations I've had been having with some of my friends, you know, mostly from varsity days. You know, people like Lucia and other friends, you know, we would sit around and have these conversations, but also realize that after we have these conversations, it kind of ends there in those sessions. So I wanted to have something recorded down so that it filters to, you know, greater society, so that it doesn't really end in our little corners, you know, where we have these conversations. So yeah, that was the main reason why I wrote the book. The title of the book has changed probably 2 times since I started writing. The Conversations with My Peers is the title. The initial title was actually Letters to My Peers, because I wanted the chapters to take the form of a letter, kind of writing peers. But then when I got like halfway through writing, I was like, no, this is gonna be tiring. Let's just change it to
Yeah,
conversations rather than letters, because I kind of ran out of letters to write. So I was like, nah, let's just change them to conversations.
conversation.
So that's how we ended up with conversations with my peers and that subtitle to kind of explain why I say conversations. Yeah, so that's the main kind of reason behind writing. Yeah, you
Awesome,
can
awesome,
say.
awesome. Okay, so with me, I've read, so we have 13 titles, right?
I hope so. I don't really count them.
Yeah, they 13. So
Yeah,
I've read 11 of them. I ended
yeah,
here by the fatherless generation because
okay,
when I first read that first part, when I was busy reading your background, I was just touched
yeah.
like, oh my God, I don't think I'm ready to be reading this
Fair.
because I also grew up without a father, a father figure in my life. And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
no, I have to be in the zone to read this. I have to be like fully
yeah,
prepared to read this. No, for now, let me just calm down. But
yeah.
one of the most title that caught my attention was the one about language. I loved it. I loved it so much because everything that you said, not that in other conversations I
Yeah,
didn't, whatever. Yeah, but
yeah.
what you said there just really caught my attention because
Mhm.
I feel like that's something that we do. We have put English in it carries a lot of what's this? Like it's very associated
Dominance
with
and power.
intelligence. Yes, it's
Yeah,
associated with intelligence. So if ever you don't know it, you are considered dumb and all of that,
yeah,
and
yeah.
when a white person tries to speak a vernacular language, they still use their accent, they still have that
Mm,
English
mm,
accent there. But then
yeah.
when you, black child, you have to speak the English with your accent, they'd be like, oh my God, you do sound Venda actually. You sound
Mm,
Tsonga, you sound Zulu. Like, who am I supposed to sound like? You want me
exactly.
to who do you want me to sound like? So like it was very
Mm,
interesting because knowing English doesn't mean you're smart, and not knowing it doesn't mean you are dumb either. I
yeah,
mean, you can be smart in other fields, but then you just don't know how to speak English, and that's okay. It's fine.
exactly. Yeah.
You shouldn't be crushed about it. You shouldn't feel like you are not noticed or whatever. So yeah, I really loved it. As for the
Yeah.
fatherless generation, I'm still yet to read it. I'm still like preparing myself.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
have to be
deep.
in the zone first. It's very deep. It's deep.
Shay.
So you published your own book. You published your own
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
And please tell us about.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're back now. Okay. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you properly. Like you're frozen.
Mm, and now?
Still.
I'm hearing bits and pieces from your side. Okay, my network seems to be full. I can see you moving though.
Is my connection fine?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can't hear you anymore. Like the speaker is going like. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let me
Let me
remove you
remove.
and then you're gonna join
Can
again.
you hear me? Okay. let's do that. Let's.
Hi Shaggy. Hi Shaggy. Way, how you doing? Am I fine? Like, is my network okay? Okay, I'm just gonna wait for him. Kwenzakalani? We're having a conversation regarding his book. He just released this book, so we're just having it's a conversation with the author. Yeah, conversations with the author, getting to know the author and asking him about his book. Yeah, he's back. Okay, yeah, there. You may feel hamp. Okay, so yeah, please tell us about the procedures of getting a book published.
Okay. I've written a few steps here. Let me just get my notebook. So that I cover the most important aspects for someone that wants to write up until publishing. I think the first step that you need to have and be clear about is know what you're about. That's the first step.
Yeah, this network is
this network thing. Yeah, so know what you want to write about. And secondly, to make things easy and simple, so that you don't get shocked by your own book, write about something that you want to read about. Because there's no point in writing if when as an author you're not gonna enjoy what you wrote about, then what's the point of writing in the first place? So make sure that you write about what your filter is.
Leave my filter alone, please. Get out.
You are out of order, Shingy.
Out of order. Cut.
So yeah, ensure that you write about what you want to read about. So you must be the first person that will rush to the front of the line to write about what you've written about. To read about what you've written about. And the other most important is
it can be, guys.
So that you back up your work. Make sure that you back up your work. If at all possible, write on Google Docs, because then you don't have to constantly save.
Yeah.
So write on Google Docs so that whatever you are writing is immediately saved, and you don't have to constantly worry about the computer crashing, losing your work. Because I've had that experience on a serious note. My initial draft was lost with my laptop crashing, so I had to literally start from scratch and rewrite something from memory.
Feel?
So it's the worst thing. It's the worst thing.
And you continued. Wow, I respect you.
Yeah, I had to. I had to, which is why I delayed so much, because the plan was actually to get the book published by 2017. That was my plan, because I wanted, when I turned 30, to have the book out. But due to laziness and other things and my computer crashing, I couldn't complete that, which is why you see on the dedication page, it's dedicated to my daughter and to my 30-year-old self. Because I wanted to publish by 30, but then life happened and we moved on from that. So make sure you back up. Make sure you write mostly on electronic platforms, so that you don't have to constantly save your file or move it around from memory stick to phone to whatever. And also make sure that you always have your recorder on hand, your voice recorder, because sometimes you're lazy to type and an idea comes to you. So just record yourself, and then you can always go back to that recording and then you transcribe it and you write it at a later stage. So have those tools in place. So make sure that you write either on Google Docs, Evernote, Samsung Notes, if you're using a Samsung or whatever form of notes that your phone supports. Do that. If you're using an iPhone, there's Pages as well that you can use, because with Pages you can also kind of start to have a book layout already on Pages. So you have that advantage on iOS to actually get ahead, as opposed to Android devices. But with Android devices, you have your Samsung Notes, you have whatever, Huawei. I'm not sure. I used to have a Huawei, but I'm not sure what the note-taking app is. But if you have a Huawei, you would know what that app is. So you can also use it instead of computer on Word and having to save and then having to move the file around from memory stick to whatever. But if you are comfortable with Microsoft Word, that's still fine. You can use that as well and make sure that you save, because I think from Word 2016 upwards, you have the option of actually saving to a cloud. So you can also go for that option. So yeah, saving your work is the most important thing, because if you don't save it, you don't have a book to publish in the first place. So make sure that you save your work. And then do your own editing, initial editing. Make sure that you go through what you've written and do the initial editing yourself. It is important to get someone to edit for you, but you don't want to be giving someone's son or daughter. Yeah, yes. So you don't want to end up giving someone's son or daughter a headache of having to basically start your work from scratch, So basically what I'm saying is be dedicated to your work, because at the end of the day, that's your baby. That's what's gonna get your name out there. So you need to make sure that you are doing the groundwork. When someone is editing for you, they are editing to make sure that the context is relevant, your chapters align, they follow each other correctly, all of that. But in terms of making sure your grammar is on point, making sure that your sentences don't end midway. For me, my biggest weakness that I know is that when I write, sometimes I type words in my head, but they don't end up on paper. So that's my biggest weakness. So when I'm doing editing, I'm looking for those things. So because I know that's my biggest weakness. I'll, for instance, say when I'm typing, I was going to town. When I go back and read it, I'll mostly find that I've written I'm going town, and I haven't included the connecting words like to and from, and so I know that that's my biggest weakness. I mostly forget the connecting words. So when I do my initial editing, that's mostly what I'm looking for, because I know that I tend to write those in my head and they don't end up on the paper, on the document that I'm working on. So once I've done that, I've checked that, then I give my work to someone else to go through and to check, am I making sense? And there's chapters that I've sent to different things. The chapter on gender, for instance, I sent that to Sia because I know the passion that we both share. So I sent that to Sia.
Network making this irritating sound.
As his friend. So I sent that to Sia to go over that, because that's a passion we share, and I knew that in terms of when he reads through that, he's reading through the context that we both share, so that at least if he gives the thumbs up, it means that I'm actually making sense, because it's something that we share. Is my network bad or yours?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's mine or it's yours, but it was making this irritating sound. But now it's better. Yeah, now it's fine.
Is it gone? Okay, that's fine. All right. Yeah. Another thing. Yeah. So I didn't send the full book to one person. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of scattered the chapters to different people that
Oh,
I knew would be relevant for that chapter, and
yeah.
then they would give feedback based on their relevance to that particular chapter. So I didn't
Interesting.
send the full book to one person to edit, but I gave it to different friends who I knew would be relevant for that chapter. And then from there, once I gathered the feedback from them, then I incorporated some of the suggestions that they gave. And then once I was done with all of that, it's only then that I sent down
Yeah.
the full book to someone to then go through everything, make sure that the progression of the chapters and the grouping of the chapters makes sense up until the last chapter. It's only the last chapter that I didn't send through to
To
someone
any.
else because I added that chapter, I think, a week before the book was supposed to be printed because I
Yeah.
felt that I needed to address that topic. So, but the first 12 chapters have been sent to different people for comments, for, suggestions and all of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's what I did. So yeah, you can do it either, sending the whole thing to someone, or you can do it my way. It's up to you, and it also depends what you are trying to address with the book that you are writing. So in terms of editing, you can send it either to someone who edits professionally, or you can ask, a friend that has a good command of the language that you use. I don't want to say the good command English because you can write,
Yeah.
Nyeshitonga, you can write in Venda, you can write Kasusutu, Nesizulu.
Yep.
So it's up to you. So make sure that the person that you're sending to edit is someone that's familiar or at least good in the language that you are writing in, so that
Yeah.
they're able to edit properly and make sure that you are on the right track. In my case, I've used a mix of languages. I've used isiZulu here and there,
Yes, you did. And that
Sesotho
was
here and there,
interesting.
I've used Tswana, I've used slang,
Yeah.
because I was primarily writing for a South African audience, and I wanted to cover everyone, but also to also show that it's from a black person. It's not from a
Yeah.
white person, so the book doesn't need to be all in English, because fortunately, in addition to having grown up reading quite a lot, I grew up bilingual, speaking isiZulu, Sesotho, kind of simultaneously. So that opened up my grasp of other languages, to be as easier
Nice.
than the next person, So I'm able to grasp languages much faster than the average person because of having grown up, speaking two languages at home. So that kind of helped me to have an advantage in terms of accessing languages. So that's how I managed to. I speak more than 6 languages, South African languages. Yeah. So yeah, because of having grown up, juggling
Wow.
languages from a
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes. So still with the process of publishing. Yes. So yeah, once you're done with all of that process, then you're ready to publish. Then the process of publishing is fairly straightforward and easy. It's not as complicated as you think. Because I also thought publishing was complicated. So you can either go, if you want to go the self-publishing route, then I'm there, my company's there to give you the guidance in terms of what are the steps and all that. But the long and short of it is that once you've done with the manuscript and you're sure that you want to publish now, then you email the National Library, you tell them the title of your of your book. You tell them how long the manuscript is, and you tell them the name and surname of the author and your address. And then once you've given them that information, then they issue you with an ISBN number, which is the barcode behind the book. So then once you're done with that process, that's what you do. And then from there, if you are self-publishing, then it means basically everything is on your shoulders. From marketing the book, from selling the book, from making sure that you push the sales of the book, that's all on you, because you don't have a publishing company backing. So that's your baby. Your book is your baby. You market it yourself.
Yeah.
Or you can hire a marketing team or a marketing company. It's up to you. And if you want to get the book in bookshops, then that means you also need to contact distributors yourself, and you need to meet their standards in order to basically get your book at Exclusive Books and other mainstream bookshops. So it's not all distributors that will say yes to your book, and it's not all bookshops that will say yes. So you must be ready for that. And yeah, you need strength, you need resilience, you need basically the drive to actually push your book yourself. If you don't want to self-publish, you can also reach out to agents or publishing companies. You need to send them a synopsis, what they call a synopsis, which is basically a summary of what your book is about, and the first chapter. They need that. Some just need a synopsis. Some need the first chapter and a synopsis for you to get published by them. But it must meet their standards. So that means basically if you don't meet their standards, then you must go forward and look for other publishers until you find one that's willing to publish. And basically, yeah, that's that on terms of getting your book published. So you can either go the self-published route, which is what I chose, or you can go the publishing company route, which then you must be ready to either change what you are writing to suit their standard, or basically push through what you want to address and go the self-publishing route. That's basically what the journey is like.
I know it's a lot. It's a lot, Shem. It's too much.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are coming to an end of our live. So for our last question, I'd like you to give any advice to a young aspiring author and tell us how we can get hold of your book.
Okay. Yeah. So my advice to any aspiring young authors is make sure that you tell your story. Don't let someone else to dictate what story you want to tell, because you're the one who knows what story you want to tell. If it means then not going the mainstream route and going the self-publishing route, then so be it. But if you have a story to tell it. We are here, to assist you. I am here, my company is here to assist you with that. Because I think most, especially with mostly Black experience stories and stories from townships and all that, they don't necessarily fit into the mainstream publishing sector, standards. So the best way to do that, to tell your story, is to basically self-publish and push, the sales yourself. So don't doubt yourself. Don't let anyone dim your light. So that's basically what I can say to young and aspiring authors. And being an author does not necessarily mean you need to write novels and nonfiction like myself. You can be a poet and you want to document your poetry. That's also being an author. and in other genres that are out there. In terms of getting hold of the book is currently being sold by myself. So basically, you can get in touch with me on Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter. My handle is at @sibusiso_Laz.
Yes.
That's Instagram and Twitter. That's the same handle. And then on Facebook, it's Sibusiso Laz Radebe with an R. So it's Sibusiso Laz Radebe. That's my Facebook profile. And then in terms of WhatsApp, my business WhatsApp number is 076 195 223. But I'll post it as well on my different social media platforms. But there is a poster on my Instagram that has all these details as well.
Yeah.
So you can go on my profile and actually get that information. The book is 180 rands. And then if you are outside Gauteng or Balfour, then there is a courier charge that applies, which is either 60 rands or 100 rands, depending on how patient you are. So the 60 rands option is 7 to 9 days via Paxi, which is the PEP courier services. And then the 100 rand option is 3 to 5 days. So it all depends on you how fast or how slow you want the book to get to you. So you can choose between those two options. And yeah, basically that's it from me. And thank you everyone for giving us the time of day. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you so much. And
You're
thank you for having me on the
welcome.
channel.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed this, and I hope people will be purchasing this book, of course, because it's going to help them. Yeah, do the most, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a lovely day. I'm going to send you the live.
Okay, please do. Thank you so much.
Bye.